Welcome everyone to Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM, WBISLP, Winterville, Aden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina. You are tuned in to the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivation with Glenn and Jacqueline Cullins Williams. My co-host who will introduce himself at this time. We also have a guest in the house, Mr. Coach Vernon Garrison, helping us out today because we want to get as much information out as possible to our listening audience concerning the drug situation or drug crisis in America and Pitt County, North Carolina. Jackie.
Hey, Dr. Glenn. It is good to be here on today. And we're glad to be here on this week and excited for this subject on today. I am Jacqueline Cullins Williams, co-host with Dr. Glenn, and we're glad to have our guest today, Coach Vernon, on today. Vernie.
There we
Bernie.
Bernie.
Coach
I love
Bernie.
new nicknames. I just love them.
We're glad to have you on our show today, dealing with drug abuse and drug problems in America, and especially Pitt County. We're going to talk about all those things and cover them on today. And so we're glad to have you here today, Dr. Glenn.
Let's pick Coach Vernon Garrison's brain right off the bat. Coach Garrison, you want to respond to this time, sir?
I'd say it's great to be working on the show with the longest intro of them all here at the station. You got time to go get your popcorn. You got time to make a ham sandwich, bake a turkey before the show comes on. So whoever's watching the rebroadcast, when they hear your fancy music, they're like, oh, there's Coach, there's Motivation with Glenn.
That's right.
I love it, man. Thank you for having me. And you don't have to add the extra cash to the check. Just keep it a regular.
I would consider that, sir.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that intro, the reason why it is what it is because, know about music the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just stop something at it. You have to wait for the downbeat. You don't have to wait for a certain beat, then it'll go off.
Right.
You just can't stop it because then it won't sound correct. Anyway, as we explore the drug crises in America, and particularly Pitt County, I also have one document that says, can I call my doctor and ask for a prescription? So could you call the doctor over the phone and ask for a prescription? The answer to that question is no, because they have a higher standard now that they have to adhere to by the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, and state laws as well, state regulations. So you cannot call the doctor and request a script over the phone to be sent to your pharmacy. I found that out about a couple of weeks ago, actually. I called my doctor to get a refill on a particular prescription. He said, Mr. Johnson, well, he didn't say because I talked to the nurse. And the nurse advised me, and her particular words were, and I quote, well, Mr. Johnson, are you aware of the fact that doctors are not allowed to prescribe any medication over the phone? You have to come in and be seen by the doctor. That was here in North Carolina, Greenville, at Physicians East. I didn't want to say that, but I had to get it out. But that's because I see my doctors are at Physicians East, and he would not do it over the phone. I had to actually go be seen. And people pose a lot of questions about that same thing. There's a lot of information on that as well. And while Coach Garrison gives his copy, I'll ask Jackie if she wants to respond at this time.
Yes, and so you can do the virtual doctor, though, and be prescribed. If you have something old, an old prescription, sometimes they will refill it and get you in for an appointment very quickly. But something new, of course, it wouldn't be wise for a doctor to prescribe that without, or something new, a new symptom without seeing you. And a lot of times the doctor wants to see you, but if you have something that needs to be refilled, you can call the doctor and they can do that. So I'm sure it's not as stringent as never getting anything over the phone.
And you mentioned that online, and I did see something about that, but I elected to not include that in this document because it mentioned a particular company's name, and I didn't want to give any kind of free promotion or advertisement for them.
Oh, yes.
But it did mention something about that. and it says it depends on the medication, who is for, how old it is, and things like that. So they still take a lot of things in consideration. Coach Garrison.
Okay, great. I love to see these outlines. This is a result of a national epidemic that we have going on now. And it's great to see the elements of prescriptions. I just had one, called in or sent in. The doctor didn't even talk to me about it. He just basically asked me, did I want to take it? And we went back and forth. I had nothing to do with it. All of a sudden, I was getting a phone call saying that the script was ready. But as far as the overall, I'd like to remind our listeners and our consumers, we're in an epidemic right now. More people are dying. The Biden administration proclaimed that there's as much as 70,630 deaths in 2019. We're due to overdose and addiction and things of that nature. America is facing the biggest epidemic yet. Now, this is not the first time we've been through an epidemic. So probably in the early 1800s, they went through one. They were involving middle class. And then, of course, around 1914, we went through this type of thing when it comes to prescribing medication. And then, of course, in the 1990s, that's the one we're dealing with right now. That's killing people, more people than the Vietnam War every month.
And it's continuing to carry on, right?
It is.
And how about back in the 60s or 70s, if I'm not mistaken?
In the 70s.
When the government or the military were testing LSD and other substances on soldiers. They had a big pandemic back then in that era.
All this is about painkillers. So they were looking at how to treat us for pain. And, of course, use heroin, use oxycodone, use various pain medications to treat everyday pain or just chronic pain. And throughout the years, they basically knew that this opioid family coming from that poppy was very, very addictive. But we'll talk about this a little bit later on as to how we got this epidemic. Now, if you want me to give you a little bit of
if you would elaborate on it, because just what you just mentioned, on one of the documents, it does say exactly what you were saying, that a lot of this stuff was derived from pain medication. They were trying to find medication for pain, and then people just got a hold of this stuff and went buck wild.
Well, you got to put in this case, we have a source, we have a reason. The drug industry, the manufacturers are the reason for every epidemic that we've had in drugs, and then the social fallout, the personal fallout in the cities, in the communities, has always been result of overprescribing. So we can't act like we haven't been here before. That the coronavirus wasn't the first pandemic we've ever had.
Right.
Pandemic and epidemic. Pandemic is something that happens intercontinental, and epidemic is a local, community, or nationwide thing.
And also, you just mentioned a key word a few minutes ago when you said source. Do you know in some countries, like Canada, for instance, if you're traveling abroad or if you're coming into Canada and your passport where your origination, where you originated your flight was in what they call a source state or source country, that means they are a source for illicit drugs, and you're more prone to get searched by customs because of that fact. They recognize, well, you're traveling from a source country, so they'll call you in, they'll send you in the locker room with some officers, and they will search you and all your contents because you came from a source state or source country.
Mm-hmm. Sure enough. So,
Jackie, I'm sorry, we had 30 seconds, Jackie.
Yes, I mean, and that's something to think about, that even those that travel abroad, that you could be searched just because you came from a source country.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we have the paper here, but we were talking about last week marijuana being made legal in North Carolina, medicinal marijuana. And so I did see that a program has started for that already.
Oh, it did?
Yes, that is already started.
Ladies and gentlemen, keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn. Back in a moment. 106.9.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
Is the Legal Edge, defending your rights as a Christian, a parent, and a citizen. Here's Brad Dacus.
The Civic Justice Institute filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court on behalf of Ross Jackson, a street evangelist. Now, Mr. Jackson was preaching in a public forum at the University of Georgia when protesters began angrily and aggressively disrupting him. Instead of protecting Mr. Jackson from the protesters, the police officers arrested him. This is undoubtedly a violation of his First Amendment right to free speech. Well, in response, PJI has cited 3 circuit courts supporting the duty of law enforcement to protect free speech. Well, if you need legal help, simply fill out the Request Legal Review form at pji.org.
PJI provides legal representation without charge. Get exclusive email updates by registering for the Legal Insider at pji.org.
Christian inspiration for the family and ministry, teaching for practical Christian living.
Welcome back to the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. You are still tuned in to Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM, also 100.3 Rocky Mount, North Carolina. This is the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivation was Glenn. And as we were going out to the break, my co-host, Ms. Jacqueline Williams, was about to explain the legalization of marijuana for medicinal purposes here in the state of North Carolina. So I'm going to give it right back over to Jackie, followed by Coach Vernon Garrison.
Yeah, so we were just talking about that, Dr. Glenn. And I know that it's in Cheyenne, I think it is, North Carolina, already started concerning something with the Native Americans.
Right, I saw that, yeah.
A place where they're starting like almost like a trial place for the medicinal marijuana. And this is something that is happening and going to happen over North Carolina. So as you know, Vernon was talking about, you know, people being overprescribed with drugs. I thought to myself, wow, I've been here 4 years. I've never received anything, any hard prescription. Everything's been over the counter. So I wonder what you have to do to get it. Because no matter how much pain I was in or whatever, and I've seen the doctor, I've got anything except over the counter drugs. Now, when I was in another state, it was different. You could say I chew, and the doctor would get you over the counter pain, meds and that type of thing. But I cannot say that I've witnessed that heavily in North Carolina.
And I think before Coach get into it, I think also they have to take precautions because they realize some medications are very, very addictive. So you have to be careful and sensitive to that issue, whether it's addictive or not. So doctors or medical professionals will take heed to that and use a lot of precaution. Coach Garrison.
There was, and I'm going to end up with the medical marijuana. In the early 90s, or prior to the early 90s, the doctors had the philosophy that these opioids, this whole family of drugs, even the synthetic ones, were very, very highly addictive. Well, there was actually a campaign that started in the early 90s that reframed the way we take drugs. And what they did was say, if we implement a process of prescribing opioids as a compassionate, generous, more specific type purpose, then we can control the addiction process. So doctors began the feel-good time and began to generously give out opioids. Parallel to that, it was creating an addiction problem. And then all of a sudden we had a major problem. Mid-90s is when we started implementing the laws and started getting legal about it because people were now addicted to it and you had to get them off. And abstinence was the best way to get them off. And so they decided to use enforcement to help get them off. That stuff started in 1914. So this is a repeat now of the judicial department becoming a part of helping America get through an epidemic of drugs. So now bringing it up to date where it didn't work. The war on drugs with Bill Clinton is just a straight out battle. People were going to jail for marijuana. I was working in the detention center at that time. I saw people coming in. If you had a gun or a bullet with marijuana, that combination would get you 30 years for every bullet you had.
I know, yeah.
So the way that they approached it, non-therapeutically was and non-psychologically and with no biological respect to you just cold turkey stopping drugs, you're addicted. So and even during that time, I worked at the homeless shelter in 93, 94. I was right in the middle, Dr. Johnson, of all of these things happening. And then AIDS was on top of that. So we were doing a terrible job. So now bringing us up to date, medical marijuana, the actual, why they use and allow marijuana, and they concluded the study now, real marijuana works better than synthetic THC. So now they're making marijuana legal. And you say, well, when a lot of folks are getting locked up for it, what do? So across the nation, the sentences have been reduced. People have been let out. They got 30 years for marijuana.
Right.
It's a misdemeanor now, as long as you go to drug treatment for different, schedule type drugs, you have your sentence.
And you know what?
Out.
And you know what else about that sentencing phase of it? Say, for instance, cocaine versus crack cocaine, both the same thing. One is just a powder form, the cocaine itself, but when you was to cook it up using baking soda, that formula to make it hard, which is crack. So you'll get a certain amount of time for one substance, whereas if you had the other substance, the crack, you would get more time. Doesn't make sense to me at all.
But that,
because I would say, if I was a drug dealer, and I don't encourage anybody to be a drug dealer, but if I was with that sentencing phase of cocaine versus crack cocaine, and that one outweighs the other one, I would say, look, here's your baking soda. You got to cook it up yourself.
You see what happens when you start refining drugs like that, or you start, let me just say one simple thing and I'll be quiet. Heroin, when Bayer introduced heroin, it was like heroin is less addictive than oxycodone. Well, then they found when it started becoming illegal and people prescriptions ran out, they went to the street. Well, heroin came in a tablet form, and actually the rich people started crushing up heroin tablets, the Italians and all of that, and immigrants started using tablets and snorting them. So now you got to get this drug more accessible to the mass if you're going to make money as a drug dealer. So they actually started cutting it, and the more they're cutting it, the weaker it got. So they made an injection out of it, turned it into a liquid, so it works better because it's been cut so many times.
And faster,
and faster. So that's why you got crack cocaine. It's the faster version of cocaine.
Of cocaine, And I never knew that. I'm glad you explained that. And before I give it to Jackie, we have 3 minutes to go for this particular segment. I just want to mention to all of our listening audience, and I'll touch bases on my guest here today, my guest and my co-host. I want our listening audience to take heed that this is a very, very dangerous thing. Illicit drugs is extremely dangerous. You don't know what you're getting. As Coach Garrison pointed out, they're putting cut on stuff like we talked about last week, Jackie. They're just putting cut on it to stretch it out. You don't know what that cut might contain. I was familiar with a young lady in Philadelphia, like I said, that used some kind of drug that had a cut on it. It wasn't a drug that killed her. It was a cut. She was absolutely allergic to the cut. Also, just to point out another danger factor about illicit drugs, what about meth labs? Do you know law enforcement have to suit up in hazmat suits, other protective equipment, if they stumble upon a meth lab because they can't just touch it? It's that potent and powerful. They can't touch it. They have to suit up, gloves on a major suit. We have 1 minute to go, Jackie, before we go to the break.
Yes, and Dr. Glenn, I do know that it can also infuse into the walls of the place where it's lived. So sometimes those places and those houses have to go through a lot to be cleaned out from the meth. So it is one of the problems, and it is very expensive to get a place where meth has been cooked, taken care of to be suitable again for living. I wanted to talk about some of the effects of drug abuse.
Absolutely.
I think we didn't talk about it on last week, but some of the effects that it has on the family and finances and your health, because I think those are things that we need to mention in avoiding drug use.
And if you don't get to it all before we go to the break, we'll pick back up after the break Also, after you explain that, if you would bring up the document with the Sharp and the Wear program on it from the sheriff's office, that would be wonderful. We have 58 seconds to go before we go to break, Jackie.
Oh, yes. And so we're going to talk about the SHARP program, which meant Sharon Heroin Addiction Recovery Program. We're going to talk about that, and we will continue it when we come back from the break to talk about this program that is for those that are in jail or incarcerated that are using drugs or that have a drug addiction. There is help for them.
And he is no stranger to Awesome Radio. So with 30 seconds or 20 seconds, I'll let him take us out to the break. Coach.
Well, I'd like to say if there's anyone out there that's struggling, all of us have been affected. Every family, our institutions have been affected. And I'd say just be aware, gather as much information as you can, being empathetic, but you're going to have to report and get professional help.
Absolutely. Keep it locked right here, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM. Back in a moment.
I broke off my knob at 106.9 FM to Awesome Radio, and I'm glad about it.
Partial funding for this program is brought to you by For His Glory Lawn Care. For His Glory Lawn Care is here to serve you with a spirit of excellence. Contact Patrick for a free estimate regarding all your lawn care needs. 252-524-2468. Edge, mow, trim. And ask about other services too. The number is 252-524-2468. Ask for Patrick or email at forhisglorylawncarellc@gmail.com to schedule your free estimate today. For His Glory Lawn Care, 252-524-2468. Thank you for your support.
We're back. You're listening to The Glenn Johnson Show. You can reach Glenn at glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for keeping it locked right here to The Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn and Jacqueline Cullins Williams. Before I give it back over to my co-host, Ms. Jacqueline Cullins Williams, to continue what she was about to just talk to commentary on the effects of drugs. I just want to say to everyone, should you like to avail yourself to any documents that we have before us, please don't hesitate to email me at Glenn, Glenn, glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com. Right now, if anybody has a question or comment they'd like to share with us, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 252-756-2008. I'm going to ask Ms. Jacqueline Cullins Williams, my co-host, if she would pick up where she left off.
Yes. And Dr. Glenn, I got some things from the National Institute on Drug Abuse. And it said that people with addiction often have one or more health issues, which can include lung or heart disease, stroke, or cancer. And it said chest x-rays and blood works often show the effects of long-term drug use throughout the body. Lung disease and also drug use can cause mental disorders. And that's one of just a few of the things that the use of drugs can cause in the body. Vernon, did you want to speak on that?
Well, when you talk about the physical aspects of drug use, I was working at the homeless shelter. I worked there about 3 years, starting in 93. And I was, of course, I'm a criminal justice major, so I thought I was prepared. But to go in and see the ailments, the sores, the physical bodies of people destroyed because of drugs, because of crack cocaine, because of heroin injections, it was phenomenal. And right now, people are hiding behind the scenes now with the same symptoms, but they don't look as bad, but we're dying more than we were then.
Yeah, and also, I'm going to point out another dangerous factor about some illicit drugs, and particularly things that you might be able to snort up your nose, cocaine being one of them. When I started as a volunteer with the sheriff's office, through our training, we were given us instructions on some of the things by one of the sheriff's office, sergeant, I believe he was, on illicit drugs here in Pitt County. And apparently, there was a woman that got arrested quite a few times for her activity in drugs. And He said one day they got a call. She was in the ER, and she had snorted so much cocaine, and it was so potent. All the cartilage out of her nose was just sitting on her face flat. There was nothing. There was nothing holding it up because it ate away all the cartilage. So can you imagine that? She was almost without a nose on her face, just two holes.
You see, now some people may or may not know this. They discovered in the opioid creation that it was going to be just for chronic pain, end of life, when somebody's passing away, morphine on the battlefield, or just in very, very extreme pain situations, chronic pain. But they also realized that this drug would be progressive, that you need more and more of it to get the results. So the addiction goes absent of any common sense. I better not do this too much or my nose going to go away.
And I just found something out also. I don't have that document. I'm saving that document for one of my speaking engagements coming up. And that is anybody that's incarcerated. I don't have the documents, so I can't give you the numbers, but there are a lot of incarcerated people that have a brain injury. And usually it's from illicit drugs, whether it's cocaine, heroin, marijuana, whatever. It has been, or the onset of the brain injury might have occurred because of their involvement with illegal drugs.
Let me say this because I did, and I know it's her turn to talk, so forgive me. You can call me Verdi. Okay. All right. The conclusion of it was the class action lawsuit or the mass government lawsuit against manufacturers of opioids. North Carolina received, I think, about $26 million. They settled out with the whole complete United States, the manufacturers of opioids did, because of that campaign that they put on that they could generously give out opioids, and got half the country addicted because of the campaign. So those who accuse one race of saying, it's just, they gave it to black people for a particular reason or racial issues, some people might have engineered that, but for the most part, it hit the nation. It didn't matter what class you were in, rich, middle class, and poor. It hit the nation for the last 20 years.
That's right, because drugs and stuff don't have no face on it. It don't have nobody's name. It don't care who you are. If it can get your system, it's going to take you out of here, and that's why I want you to be careful. I want you to think about the consequences of doing these illegal drugs. Jackie?
Yes, and I've seen the effects of it myself. I have worked in ministry for years and years, and I also have personally up close dealt with people that had addictions, and it can be something to deal with people that do have addictions or to try to help them. And as Vernon said, they do need to get help and seek help, but they have to admit that they have a problem first. I remember a woman when I was pastoring back in Colorado, and she came. She'd gotten out, and I did a lot with those that were on parole and mentoring women in that area. And so this particular woman, she'd gotten out on parole, and immediately she'd been locked up for years, and immediately she went right to the drugs. So, drug treatment is very important to get them while they're in jail. She didn't get any kind of treatment or anything, and immediately she went back to it. I was very surprised at the criminal justice system. They gave her 8 years. And I thought, wow, 8 years. There are people that have killed people and they didn't get 8 years. She's done, her crimes are to herself. That she's not harmed anybody. She's only harmed her own self by doing drugs. And everything that she had been arrested for was concerning possession of drugs that she was personally using. And so I thought that the justice system was very harsh on her. I know people that have killed, and I've seen cases of people that have killed children and other people, and they didn't get 8 years.
And I think based upon what you said, I agree with you. That was a miscarriage of justice, in my opinion. And that's why I'm delighted to say, like you said, she needed help while she was incarcerated. That's why I'm delighted to say here in Pitt County, North Carolina, we have the SHARP program, which we'll get to after we come back from the break, because it's a 1-minute audio clip from Sergeant Darnell, who appeared on the police report, first responder show with Coach Garrison and myself. So we'll play that. And if you bring that document up about the SHARP program, and where. And we'll play the audio clip as well. But we'll do that because we'll be winding down to our final 20 minutes of today's broadcast. So I want to give our guest, Coach Vernon Garrison, more opportunity to explain some of the drug situations here in Pitt County as we get to the Sharp and Aware program. Jackie, one minute.
1 minute. And so we're talking about the Sharp program. Are you?
Well, if you can get to it in 1 minute or not, we'll pick back up after the break.
We need to pick back up. We also talked about the effects of drugs, mental disorders, and also the finances. It puts a large toll on families and the justice system and the resources in every state, in every country where there's a lot of drug problems going on. And so we want to make sure that we offer people help. Also, they can cry out to the Lord. If you can't get to a drug treatment place or you feel like that, you can't get there, you can always cry out to God for help. And we'll give a few scriptures before we get off today that let you know that you can always reach out to them. People have been delivered from drugs just by God alone.
Yeah, and as we prepare to go out to the break, when we come back, we'll have more commentary on the drug situation for Coach Vernon Garrison. I'll have my co-host explain some of the scriptures and how to seek and get help for a drug situation or drug problem. And then we'll play the audio clip from Sergeant Darnell, Pitt County Sheriff's Office on the SHARP program. And we will definitely not leave out that part because I think it's so important. I know a lot of people have negative views about the law enforcement, but this is one instance where law enforcement is out to help people. So law enforcement is not always a negative thing. Look at the aspects of them being good, positive in your life. So keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivations with Glenn. This is Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. Back in a moment. In a moment.
Keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show.
Simply be present. This is Moving Moments. I'm Cindy Tang. I know I can't give you any advice, but I can at least be present. That's what I said to my husband when he faced a tough business challenge a while back. See, we're not supposed to go through this thing called life alone. We need our friends and our family. But here's the good news. God wants to help us out too. If you remember in the book of Joshua, Joshua had a lot to deal with, but he obeyed, kept his eyes on God, and led the Israelites across the Jordan River to the promised land. And in chapter 1, verse 9, we learn that God was with him. So today, allow God to be present in your life. But remember this, he won't just barge in. You must give him permission. This is Moving Moments. Now it's your time to make a move.
Hi, this is Monica of Journeys Transportation, and I listen to Awesome Radio.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivation with Glenn and Jacqueline Cullins Williams. We have narrowed down to our final 20 minutes of today's broadcast, so I'm not going to delay anything. I know Jackie want to get out some more information as well as Coach Garrison. So I'm going to begin with Miss Jacqueline Cullins Williams.
Yes. And so, Dr. Glenn, any addiction, we're talking about drugs here, but there's a lot of other people that are addicted to other things like caffeine, eating and shopping and other things. We mentioned those things. Those things are addiction too. So the scripture chicken wings, yes, fried chicken wings, overeating, overindulgence, sweets. There's a lot of people that are addicted.
I'm sorry,
we are calling from online listing group with an urgent message.
All right, so we had a call on the line. Sorry about that, Jackie. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so the scriptures that I'm going to give real quick for addiction or anything that deal, and we talked about the Bible not saying specifically or talking about drug addiction, but it does talk about being drunk with wine. It talks about being sober. And when you talk about being sober, that can deal with drugs or anything that takes away your mind or that takes away you having a sound mind. Yeah. And so I'm just going to read just a couple of scriptures and then we'll go over to the SHARP program. Ephesians 5:18 says, do not be drunk with wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. And so, you can be filled with the Spirit and get just as much joy and happiness as you can from drugs. It can be addictive. God can be addictive and seeking after him can be addictive. And so you can be blessed by that alone. He can give you joy and he can give you peace. And also, I wanted to say this one, Jeremiah, and this is about healing and being healed and delivered from drugs. Jeremiah 17:14. Heal me, Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, Lord, and I will be saved. For you are the one I praise. So
Absolutely.
God can heal you and he can save you from whatever it is that you're addicted to, even if it's coffee, even if it's chocolate, even if it's wings, Coach Vernon. Whatever it is, God can heal you. So there's no limit to what he can do. If you cry out to him, he can heal you and he can deliver you. There's many people that have been delivered, even from illicit drugs, whether it's marijuana, whether it's drinking, whether it's a habit or whatever it is, God can deliver you. There's nothing that he cannot do. And all you have to do is cry out to him and continue to cry out to him. He'll answer you. Cry, come unto me, he says, come unto me and he will give you. The Bible says that he will give you rest. He'll cause you to have rest from whatever it is. He'll cause you to have peace from whatever it is. And all you have to do is just reach up to him and continue to cry out to him. He'll answer you. He'll answer you. He's a God that is not silent, and he wants to be there on your behalf. Dr. Glenn?
And what was that you told Coach Garrison about something about food? You know what I think he need? Cottage cheese and fruit. Anyway, I know you got the document over there available. We're going to go to the SHARP program. Let me just play that audio clip. This is Sergeant Lee Darnell from the Pitt County Sheriff's Office, his explanation on the SHARP program. Can I just ask you briefly if you can explain the SHARP program?
SHARP program? Absolutely, Doc. They're taking people who are coming into the detention center with controlled substance habits, and they are trying to get them help for that, trying to build their other problems in life and reinforce them so that once they do get out of jail, that we've given them the help not only with substance use disorder, but with other problems in life, so that we've reinforced their family life, their job life, their anger management issues, their parenting issues, their education issues, their GED, all these other issues, so that once they're out there, they're a stable part of society and back on their feet and living in a better world, so that they don't get back in jail, so that they don't reoffend, they don't get back using the substances, they don't get back in that domestic violence situation, so that whatever these problems that they keep getting into are stopped, so that they don't reoffend. And that saves tax dollars, that saves the community, safer community, better families, better world. And right now it's making a huge difference.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Hold on 1 second. You just
All
tell
right,
the
yeah.
audience to hold on.
I know.
This
All
ain't the
right.
telephone.
I couldn't reach the button. Anyway, that was Sergeant Darnell of the Sheriff's Office SHARP program. And before I give it back over to Jackie and Coach Garrison, I would like to, for our listening audience, please email me for a document that's titled 10 Dangerous Drugs That Attack Your Brain and Your Body. They have a color-coded chart of a human figure, along with a color-coded explanation of the various drugs. And while I'm on that particular part, let me just point out one thing. The number one drug that can stop your heart instantly is cocaine. And when they talk about cocaine, which is highlighted or color-coded blue, some of the things that affects include dilated pupils, elevated blood pressure, heart and respiratory problems, and stuffy nose. But that heart and respiratory problem is the major one. Cocaine can stop your heart instantly. If that's why you have to avoid these things. You might think it's a recreational drug. You're having fun. You're partying. This could absolutely kill you. This is why we're having this topic, to educate you. If you're using it, surrender, give yourself to God, call on the Lord Jesus, Savior Jesus Christ, and surrender and stop all this illegal drug activity. Jackie.
Oh, yes, destroying your mind and your body with drugs. We're going to talk about the SHARP program here. And I wanted to just add, Dr. Glenn, that I had a document here that said 85% of the prison population has an active substance disorder.
Yeah.
That 85% of those that are incarcerated of the prison population has a substance disorder. And it said also here 86% of the homicide cases are linked to drugs. That's a large amount of murders that are linked to drugs in some way. That number was very, very shocking to see. And so we're going to talk about the SHARPS program, the Sheriff Heroin Addiction Recovery Program. It's an initiative for qualifying male inmates within Pitt County, North Carolina Detention Center who volunteer for the program, seeking help. The initiative was created by Sheriff Paula Dans to assist those with substance use disorder overcoming their addictions, changing their thought processes, improving their holistic lifestyle. The SHARP initiative allows licensed therapists and counselors and peer support specialists to work with selected individuals who acknowledge their need for assistance in ending their substance use cycle. That's an awesome program that Sheriff Paula Dans has instituted over there.
And I really appreciate Sheriff Dans for doing that. I'm pretty sure our Pitt County at large appreciates all her things that she has done thus far as being the sheriff of Pitt County. I think our entire Pitt County community appreciates all the things that she has done. So hats off to Sheriff Paula Dans. Coach, we got 1 minute, 17 seconds.
When I used to hate it when I used to hear Al Sharpton, the activist, say, when white America gets a cold, black America got the flu. White America, and then I could just carry it on. White America get the flu, we got pneumonia. They get pneumonia, we got coronavirus. Black America suffered so much socially in the criminal aspect, the way that they implemented the war on drugs. And we lost so much that we will never recover. Families destroyed and things of that nature. So the government is truly, I'm not talking conspiracy, the government is truly responsible for getting us into this mess. And I don't know if they can get us out. It's going to take the Lord, is going to take our discipline, and we're going to have to just downright out be expectations on commanding our people, our race, to leave those drugs alone.
That's right.
Get help.
As we got to the break, I just want to mention we'll be back after the break for our final 10 minutes of today's broadcast. I'm going to ask my co-host if she can get the document on how to receive help for a drug problem. So this is 106.9. Back in a moment.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You've accidentally cut your daughter's bangs unevenly. Do you A, line things up a centimeter from her hairline?
Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man.
No. Sweatbands are so hot right now. Everyone's wearing them. Like that basketball player and that other basketball player.
B, get spiritual.
Mom, where did all the mirrors go?
A reflection could never capture our true selves.
Huh?
Beauty is within.
C, look on the bright side.
Less time blow drying, more time texting.
Or D, show empathy.
Mom, you really don't have
Ta-da! Twinsies!
I kind of love it. As a parent, there are no perfect answers, but you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for keeping it locked right here to 106.9 FM, WBIS LP, Awesome Radio. This is our final 10 minutes of today's broadcast. So without delay, I'm going to give it back over to my co-host, followed by Coach Vernon Garrison, which will conclude today's broadcast. Jackie.
Yes, we wanted to just give you out a few numbers where you can seek help if you are addicted to drugs and even alcohol. Ray of Hope Substance Abuse Counseling Center alcoholism treatment program. And the phone number is 252, and that's here in Greenville, 252-413-0401. Also a substance abuse helpline and support, addiction treatment center. And that's also here in Greenville. These are things for Pitt County. And it is 252-751-5120. There's also a recovery center here in Greenville. And the phone number for that is 252-353-2555. Dr. Glenn.
If you didn't have time to jot that down, maybe you can remember this or jot this down. Glenn, Glenn, Glenn Johnson Show at gmail.com. And I will forward the document to you. Coach Garrison.
Through illicitly manufactured fentanyl, synthetic opioids, and methadone, and so many other drug issues that we have in America, we have the data to support this. It is increasing overdose mortality. We have to understand this epidemic is just as dangerous or more dangerous than the pandemic that we just experienced the height of, the peak of. President Biden has made clear that addressing the overdose and the addiction epidemic is urgent priority for his administration. He was also a co-author for writing aspects of the war on crime that Bill Clinton put in place. So he's been a part of what he thought was the solution. And so now he's president, he's telling us the $4 billion that he put into the system as a result of this nationwide lawsuit against the drug manufacturers is going to be a part of the answer when it comes to seeking help. And the conclusion of my subject today is I'm expecting us to not just hear this. The phrase "just say no" was ineffective. Just say no to drugs did not work, as you can see. So you don't have to argue with me. So us on this panel today telling you to get help, that's going, even if it goes into your ear, it maybe not be effective. You have to discipline your family member, your friend, your cousin. You have to get them help. You have to get them a team. The pastor should be probably the leader of the team. If you're dealing with mental health, you have treatment teams, person-centered treatments. All of this need to be managed by various positions, various clinicians and people in your family, your wife, your uncle, whoever the authority is in your life, well respected. You will get off of these drugs. You will keep a safe distance, and you will be able to set up your bank accounts where they won't have access to take all your money or steal all your goods. I know what you're going through. You're wondering if he's back out there doing it again, or if she's back out there doing it again. It's a part of recovery to relapse, okay? It's a part, just like I go after strawberry shortcake or pineapple cake. I'm going to get another one. I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah, we know that.
But before I break it down, but now I've broken it down, I reward myself every once in a while. But it's an official part of recovery to relapse, okay? To go in, to leave early and go back. You know, people been in treatment centers. Do not give up on those people. Protect your assets, protect your heart, still keep your family involved, and maybe somebody else wants to talk. But my coaching moment to you is I'm expecting all of my clinicians, pastors, teachers, preachers, leaders to expect the government to administer these billions of dollars to support people that have a drug history so they can raise their families with minimum interruption for their visions and plans that God has for them so they can live right.
Exactly. And I know we didn't touch on a lot of things. We could touch on more because this is such a large topic of discussion. So, for instance, we didn't touch on the drug spice. We also didn't touch on the drug tax stamp. There's actually a tax stamp that supposed to be on illegal drugs so that the state could continue to receive revenue from your illicit drug activity. And that still takes place here in North Carolina, but they're trying to dissolve it. Whether that's going to happen or not, I have no say in that. But let me give the remaining 4 minutes to my co-host, Ms. Jacqueline Williams.
Also wanted to talk to, or just say before we end, that early intervention, I believe, is very important.
Amen.
And that is in high drug areas, getting to kids and teaching them about drugs.
Absolutely.
And getting the next generation and stopping them and helping them, equipping them and giving them information about drugs so that they themselves, when they're adults, can make the choices not to be on drugs.
I agree. I'm thinking for saying that because I believe Isaiah 11:6 speaks about the child shall lead.
Definitely. Early intervention. And I also want to say to those that are leaders and clergy members and those that are in ministry that they need to be available to people. You know, a lot of times people that are reaching out for help, they need to have phone numbers. They need to have a place where they can call and somebody that they can trust to pray with them and to help see them through, as well as the drug treatment centers. I believe that, you know, the Christians and those that are in the Christian realm are those that are very important to people, to helping them to get off of drugs and helping them to be delivered and helping to support them and walking them through to their victory.
I thank you, Jackie. I am a doctor of clinical religious counseling. Everybody know. If you need help, as Jackie said, more people need to reach out. So I'm going to offer my services. My direct cell phone number is 252-902-9222. If you need it, you have it. Pass it along. I don't mind. Give me a call and we'll work through this thing. I am a doctor of clinical religious counseling. I'm here to help you. Help yourself. Jackie.
I want to say too, and I don't know how much time we have left, Dr. Glenn.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. But in my last minute, I want to say if you're stressed out and you don't know what to do and you have some problems and things going on in your life, some hurt and some pain on the inside, I want to say to you, don't reach for drugs. Don't start. If you don't start, you won't have that addiction that you're trying to fight. If you don't start, you won't be going through the financial trouble and the pain that is causing your family, in your body, and in your mind and in your spirit. Don't start. If you can get past it and you can find another way, don't start drugs.
If you don't start, you don't need to stop. Just don't start. As you used to say back in the 80s, just say no.
Yeah, I told you it didn't work. Look at us now.
I know, right?
Look at us now.
That's why I said that.
So now, I got one thing to say about the clergy. I got to step on some toes. And I know my pastor, he's straight. See your people according to the clinical treatment and counseling model. One visit is not enough. You got to be involved in that person's life. There'll be follow-up visits. I think that if a pastor marries you, you should have to go back to him several times throughout the marriage to get updates, because relationships change. Before you get a divorce, you need to be able to go back to that same person that gave you premarital counseling and justify to them. Then you can get a divorce. So there's a lot of things morally that we need to practice to preserve the community and the institution of marriage. But just seeing them one time and then saying them a couple of times and then saying vows on marriage day, or just seeing somebody that's battling with drugs one time and sending them to a treatment center. No, you got to expand that.
I was going to say something about that before we close it out. You're right. That's like Nelson Mandela. Spent 27 years in prison. Got released from prison. Could only stay married to his wife for 2 years. And you know what that tells me? He was basically institutionalized. He was so used and comfortable for doing everything himself over the 27-year period. He could only sustain a relationship and a marriage with her for 2 years. So it happens to everybody, not just yourself. And I didn't just say that to be joking. That is actual fact. Jackie, you want to close us out with 20 seconds?
20 seconds. I want to say that, get to the house of the Lord. There should be healing and there should be deliverance, and there should be a place where if you're sick with any kind of sickness that you could come in.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody. This is Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. Thank you for tuning in today.
Grandparenting